Mark Taylor-Canfield, friend of the show and awesome independent activist and journalist and blogger, and has been on the program. Mark, it's good to talk to you, buddy.
I have an update actually about the federal grand jury in Seattle. There are
what's going on? Can you tell our listeners real quick what that is?
And there's been a federal grand jury investigation going on in Seattle. There were raids on the homes of activists in Portland and Seattle back in July. And at this point, there are 3 people in jail: Catherine Oljanik, Matt Duran, and Leah-Lynn Plant. And they've been jailed for civil contempt for refusing to testify at a grand jury. Unfortunately, all of the documents in terms of the warrants and subpoenas in this grand jury are sealed, so nobody really knows what it's about. But the latest is that the Seattle Post-Intelligencer actually, which is our only real newspaper left, by the way, after Frank Blethen just gave $75,000 in free ads to a Republican candidate for governor.
Uh-oh.
He's the owner of the Seattle Times, by the way. We'll get to that in a second. But in the Post-Intelligencer was able to report on the fact that some documents had been unsealed on October 16th, and they showed that the FBI was following anarchists from Portland, or in Portland, long before the May Day event. And so that's one of the clarifications on the story, I guess, is that most of the media, and actually most of the corporate media hasn't mentioned it at all and has not been reporting on it, but there have been a couple good articles, one in Salon, one in Truth Out, and lately one in Al Jazeera, which is why it's breaking internationally, this whole story. They're calling it America's Pussy Riot, so
yeah,
it's finally getting some international attention.
Yeah,
not from U.S. news media, though.
Yeah, and of course,
of course not.
Real truth-telling independent folks like Filter Free Radio covered the Pussy Riot story 2 months ago, Scott? So, it's good that more people are catching on to what the hell is really going on, and
that's one of the reasons I appreciate the work you do, Mark.
Excuse me? Sorry, Scott.
Oh, no, I was going to say, that's one of the reasons I appreciate the work you're doing is informing our listeners and us and everybody else about, it's important to communicate, I think, and find channels to communicate, because we obviously don't have corporate media or mainstream media, and so we had to find our various outlets. And so that's why I always appreciate the work you're doing, Mark, because, you inform us from literally on the ground of protests, there in Seattle and all the Occupy encampments and things of what's going on. And so it's good news, and I think it gives us hope, because there are people out there getting active, and you've given us lots of evidence of that. So it's good stuff, man.
Hey, thanks, Scott. What's happening is that I'm doing more and more journalism and less activism, because I'm so busy trying to cover what's happening in the world of activism. It's crazy. So we do have an effort ongoing. We are working on a U.S. media working group and an international collaboration with some really good folks. But in terms of what I've been doing, I've got so many articles in the can, and I can't even keep track of them all, really, because there's so much to cover around the world, and I find myself just always looking for media coverage of very important international events and not finding it in the U.S. media. So I guess I'm back to being sort of a media democracy advocate and just trying to make sure that the people that I work with know this stuff so that it can eventually, get that kind of coverage. But there's been a lot of people, throughout the years, from Amy Goodman on down, and actually we're all sort of working together. I feed them information and make sure that they know what's going on. And we all sort of are trying to work together to break through the corporate media blockade, because on this particular story, especially, it has been a complete media blackout in the U.S. And so finally starting to see Al Jazeera, I'm lobbying the Guardian and other folks to get on this. People like Yoko Ono need to get involved, just like they did with Pussy Riot. Yeah. It's time, for people, these activists in Seattle and Portland and Olympia, they really shouldn't be left alone having to face this. It's really a major international issue. It's not the only activist in jail right now in the United States. Don Siegelman, former governor of Alabama.
You betcha.
In terms of political
yeah.
prisoners, yeah.
You can sign. There you go.
Yes, exactly. And also, if you go to No Political Repression at WordPress, No Political Repression, you'll find updates on what's happening at the federal grand jury. Nobody in the corporate media is really going to keep up on it.
Right.
But there's also that really good article in Al Jazeera, and I think now there's one in Salon and Truth Out. So at least, it's starting to get some tread, and it's starting to move. So that's a good thing, because Matt Duran has been in jail since August. So, well, I guess the latest is that's the update from Seattle. And the other thing I wanted to mention really quick was that there's been a major blow against freedom of the press in the United States, and that is that Seattle Times publisher Frank Blethen has just given somewhere around $80,000 in free ads to the Republican candidate for governor in Washington State. So
Wow.
It's a huge, major scandal. 100 reporters and staff members of the Seattle Times signed a letter in protest. It's a huge deal, and I think it has a huge significance for the press in the United States. And what I just wrote about was, given the post-United Citizens United decision era of political elections in the United States is basically just a sport for the wealthy. And here's an example where a wealthy newspaper publisher can play William Randolph Hearst. It's like Citizen Kane is back. He's going to push his candidate for governor in Washington State and try to defeat Jay Inslee, our former congressman that's running on the Democratic side. So, huge scandal, another big story that needs to be covered, because we as journalists really can't stand by and watch this kind of thing happen. It's just ridiculous. It's just the media is being bought and sold in the United States, and it's so sad. We really need to get back to some sort of real democracy, because anytime you have someone that powerful. By the way, the Seattle Post-Intelligencer is now only online, so the Seattle Times is the only daily newspaper in Seattle. And this guy has given the whole newspaper over to the Republican candidate for governor, which is unheard of. I mean, even Fox News doesn't do that. So,
yeah, at least not nakedly and openly.
Yeah, just keep an eye on that, because hopefully there will be a huge backlash amongst journalists around the country, because that's just ridiculous. And it's got to be embarrassing for them that the first, major backlash came from their own reporters.
Oh.
Thanks for the opportunity to throw out those stories, guys, because there's always something going on that the media is not going to cover, and it's great that you guys have an open door for that. I appreciate it very much.
Oh, absolutely, dude. We appreciate you coming on and keeping us informed, man. It's important to spread the word and keep the information out there, because obviously, like you said, we need to be the media, and it speaks to the need to form a third and parallel system to supplement once the mainstream corporate media collapses, and it certainly will under its own weight. We need to be there with our own media to step up and say, oh, look, here we are. We've already got this established, and we are the media, and here's the news you need to know. And so thank you, Mark, for doing the good work. We appreciate it, bud.
Hey, Scott and Jacob, I'd really love to bring you in on this U.S. media working group thing that we're doing. It's just an example of exactly what you just said, just trying to work with everybody we can in the alternative media to create some kind of network where everybody can work together and help update and let each other know what's going on, maybe even create some kind of a news wire or something that we can all use. So
yeah.
I will stay in
that'd
touch
be
on
awesome,
that.
dude.
The Independent Newswire. I'm
all about it. So.
I'm stoked about it already, dude. No, that's awesome.
That sounds great, dude. Yeah, absolutely.
There's somebody in Oregon with Occupy Oregon, Dean Edwards, who's doing great work on that. And I'll just make sure he gets in touch with you guys, because
yes, please.
We're trying to approach it from a very ethical point of view, in that we want to reinforce the Society for Professional Journalism standards for journalism that nobody seems to cover in the corporate media anymore, just like Frank Blethen showed. So I will, I'll get you guys some more information on that. And in the meantime, I guess it's time to go cover the bread and circus of the U.S. presidential debates.
Right.
I have to do some fact checking.
Yeah, bread and circus indeed. Bread and circus.
Well said. Appreciate the call, Mark, bud, and we'll talk to you soon, man.
Great. All right, we'll stay in touch. Bye.
All right, that's awesome. And so the comment line apparently is a huge success, Scott. During that 10-minute call there with Mark, we had probably 6 other phone calls.
Wow. No way.
These debates have become such an important part. We have to be quiet as mice throughout this because we want a debate that is worthy of the presidency of the greatest country in the world. Thank you all for coming. We're going to have
business and financial monopoly, speculation, reckless banking, class antagonism, sectionalism, war profiteering. They had begun to consider the government of the United States as a mere appendage to their own affairs. And we know now that government by organized money is just as dangerous as government by organized mob.